Hey, Lions Nation! We're back with another exclusive video bringing you all the latest news about our beloved Detroit Lions. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss anything about the team now. Let's get into the news. The tension inside the Detroit Lions facility did not rise like a tide, it detonated. One moment the building hummed with the controlled chaos of a franchise, sharpening its claws for another brutal season. And the next it pulsed with an unease so thick it clung to the skin like wet ash. Words spread not by mouth, not by text, but like a vibration through the very walls. As if the structure itself carried the secret, Goff had issued an ultimatum. And not just any ultimatum, something primal. Something carved from fear and fury and a kind of desperate territorial instinct that rarely surfaces in ordinary men in this universe. Jared wasn't simply a quarterback, he was a commander, a strategist. A man forged under the weight of expectations and flame-tempered scrutiny. But even iron bends when a greater force approaches. The whisper spoke of him, the unnamed presence. The player rumored to be on Detroit's radar, a shadow whose potential arrival made the air colder, heavier, hostile. Nobody dared speak his name aloud, not because of superstition, but because something about the idea of him carried the electric crackle of an impending storm. Jared stood in the middle of the team auditorium, arms rigid at his sides, jaw clenched so tightly the tendons in his neck twitched like restless serpents beneath the skin. The coaching staff watched him, caught between fear and reverence, while players filled the seats with eyes wide and breaths shallow. The lights above flickered in nervous pulses, trembling as though reacting to the raw emotional voltage saturating the room. When Jared spoke, his voice was lower than usual, stripped of its calm and polished veneer. It came out as a growl smothered under forced control. "If he comes here," he said, "I walk." Gasps, sharp and immediate, ricocheted across the room. Some players leaned forward, others leaned back. A few exchanged glances heavy with the kind of unspoken shock that only rises when a deep, immutable boundary has been crossed. Dan Campbell stepped toward him. But Jared did not flinch. His eyes burned not with hatred, but with the unmistakable fire of a man who had seen something in another player. Something dangerous enough to shake even the most fortified parts of his soul. He spoke again, every word grinding like metal under pressure. "I know what he is. I know what happens when he shows up, and I refuse to share a field with that." No one interrupted. No one dared. The silence that followed felt alive. A living beast crawling across the rows of seats. The unnamed he, the one Detroit was considering signing, had a reputation that stretched like smoke across the league, dark, twisting, suffocating. Stories half legend, half nightmare painted him as more force than man. A presence that altered the identity of any team he joined, consuming locker rooms like a black hole swallows light. Some wondered if Jared's ultimatum was fear, others wondered if it was self-preservation, but the truth lingered somewhere deeper, somewhere more sinister. Jared wasn't afraid of the player. He was afraid of what the player would force him to become. The auditorium felt smaller by the second, the walls closing in, the lights dimming, the air thickening with dread. Jared lifted his chin, expression torn between defiance and something that resembled grief. "Detroit can choose him," he said quietly. "Or it can choose me." And in the silence that followed, the Lions realized they were not choosing between two players. They were choosing between the fates. Before we move on, take a second to drop a like and subscribe. That way, you'll stay up to date with every exclusive Lions update. And you'll even have a chance to win an official Detroit Lions jersey. Let's keep going. The storm hit Detroit. Just as discussions behind closed doors reached their boiling point, rain crashed sideways against the windows, thunder growling above the city like an old god waking hungry. Jared sat alone now, helmet in his lap, shoulders slumped yet rigid with a tension that had seeped deep into his bones. The locker room around him flickered under erratic fluorescent lights, each pulse casting long shadows that reached across the floor like skeletal fingers. His teammates kept their distance, not out of disrespect, but because they sensed the gravity swirling around him, a gravity that pulled at everything, warping loyalties and hearts in its orbit. The unnamed player, the man whose arrival he feared, loomed in every conversation, every hushed whisper that leaked from the front office corridors. They called him the Reaper, not because he killed careers, but because he killed identities. When he joined a team, he didn't integrate, he dominated, and quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks, never survived his presence unchanged. Jared's mind replayed fragments of their last encounter in this universe's strange, Shifting past, a hit delivered without malice yet filled with something worse intent, the man had closed in on him like a collapsing star, movement fluid, inhuman, inevitable. Jared still remembered the way the field had bent around the Reaper's approach, how the air itself seemed to warp as though reality recognized a higher predator entering its perimeter. He remembered the taste of dirt and cold metal as he hit the ground, and he remembered the voice quiet, almost gentle whispering through the face mask gap, "You shouldn't be here." Ever since that moment, Jared's nightmares carried the same rhythm, footsteps behind him, the field shrinking, the stadium lights dimming until only that silhouette remained. So when he heard the Lions were considering bringing him in, something fractured deep inside. Now, as the storm raged, Jared's heartbeat thudded like drums at a funeral march. The doors to the facility opened with a wail, and Dan Campbell entered, soaked from the rain. Eyes grim, he didn't speak at first, choosing instead to sit beside Jared in the heavy silence. When he finally talked, his voice carried no judgment, only exhaustion. "They want him," Dan said. "Ownership, front office, scouts, they think he changes everything." Jared didn't look up. "He does," he whispered. "That's the problem." Dan sighed, the sound deep enough to shake dust from the benches. "If he arrives, I won't stop you from leaving, but you need to know something." Jared stiffened. "What?" Dan turned his head slowly, eyes reflecting the faint glow of the emergency lights as thunder cracked again outside. "He's already on the plane." The words hit Jared harder than any blitz, any sack, any failure he'd ever survived. His knuckles whitened around the helmet. The storm outside intensified, wind howling like a warning, and somewhere in the darkness above Detroit, cutting through clouds like a blade, a plane descended toward the city, carrying the very monster Goff had tried to outrun. The ultimatum had been given, the decision had been made, and now the only question left was not whether Jared Goff would leave, but whether Detroit would recognize itself after he arrived. We bring you the latest Lions news every single day, so make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And of course, drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's news. Your voice makes a difference for Lions Nation. See you in the next video.